So, without further ado, welcome to the Points League. I'm your host, Commissioner Sean Murphy. With me this evening, we have a panel of non playoff participants in the form of Tim Byrne, Trent McGee, and Dan Gower, and eventually Scott Vanderpool. Gentlemen, welcome back to the program. We'll start with Dan. Welcome back. We haven't had you on the pod in probably 2 or 3 years, so it's great to hear your voice.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see you, and it's always nice to be on the prestigious Points League podcast.
Very prestigious Points League podcast, making its debut on YouTube, which is fantastic because I cannot get any video on my screen for whatever reason. So basically, this is just straight up audio right now, which is hilarious given that we wanted to have some video on this. We'll move on to our next participant, Trent. Were you the last person that I did a pod with?
Is that right? No, you were. I think you were at a bar with Tim. I think was the last one that you did.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So, but second, at least your last good one.
Yeah.
And it's not very often I'm introduced on panels. I'm on a lot of prestigious panels, and usually I'm introduced as an expert. And this one, it's like, here are the losers to comment on the playoff people. So, hosted by a playoff person who has half my roster. So, yeah.
A lot of truth in those statements. And finally, we have Tim Byrne, habitually a non-playoff observer, but that might be changing soon.
Yeah, no, really, this is the 2025 playoff preview pod, actually. Statistically speaking, probably the most likely group to make it. Sean, very skilled. Tim and Trent with a lot of money. Dan, because we like him. So this is actually really just future draft or future podcasts. We have time traveled back to 2024 to talk about Vijay Drummond-Ranju and his incredible run to his first title.
That seems to be the consensus anyway. I can't wait to do that pod with Vijay should he win. But we'll go ahead and get started. But before we jump into the baseball, and that'll be obviously a lot of the conversation. What did you guys do this summer? Like, my summer was pretty boring. I pretty much stayed here in London, Ontario. I went to the gym. I played poker, and I slept and went to work. That was pretty much it. Hopefully, Tim, you did something a little bit more exciting.
No, mine was definitely more exciting. I went to Europe for about 2 weeks. Greece. I was in Athens. Hit a little bit of the countryside. That was actually technically for work, which was great because they paid for it. Basically did a little summer abroad course with some students. And then I went to Rome for a few days on my own sightseeing tour. Ate a lot of pasta. Literally ate carbonara every day because, yeah, why not? And, caught some of the sights and enjoyed my time abroad. And that was probably the highlight of the summer for me.
Well, and I'll go next. I'll pop in here since, I think our host forgot that he was on video for all of us. So when he disappeared for a little bit here because of Tim's boring answer, I, did nothing. I'm extremely broke right now. I burned $150 on this points league thing that I had no shot of winning this year with this terrible roster I inherited. And then my wife lives in Michigan and I live in Indiana. So every weekend it was me driving up to Michigan to go see her, which is a great place, but that gets expensive. We been searching for opportunities up there and buying houses, and thank God for MLB.TV and sort of Rob Manfred, because I'm a Kansas City fan, so I can watch the Royals every day and then watch my fantasy team. So that was my summer.
Very nice. Yes, I stepped away to make sure that all of you were actually being recorded on the channel. Dan, what did you do? We caught some of your fishing exploits, and I think you were recently in Canada as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I had a pretty good summer. Did a family reunion, did a few other things, but yeah, the big one was I went to Banff, Canada, like a couple weeks ago, and went to Glacier National Park in Montana. And I didn't actually get to fish in Banff. I don't know if everybody's seen a picture of Banff, but it has like these Powerade blue lakes that are pretty otherworldly. Like they always look like they have a filter on them, but they just have this crazy color because of the, I don't know, some science shit, minerals. But you can't fish in there because as we've discussed a few minutes ago, Canada being a socialist nation, they don't like freedom. But Glacier National Park is in the United States, and so I did get to have a pretty special fishing experience there. I like hiked up to this lake, had a collapsible rod in my backpack, whipped it out up there, waded into the water. My family, of course, is all talking shit. Like, look at this fucking idiot getting wet in this cold water. He's not going to catch anything. Nailed a rainbow trout on my first cast. It was like, it was nice. It was a good fishing moment for me. And yeah, it's probably about as good as it gets.
Was that the only thing that you whipped out up there?
I'm sorry?
Was that the only thing that you whipped out up there?
Do you mean dong wise or just fish wise?
I mean, you're just whipping out rods, so I'm just making sure it was Canada. There's a lot of kids around.
I mean, he did say he was sorry, so it was a very Canadian response.
I've been known to, yeah, I dipped my rod a few times. I caught my first bull trout also. It was pretty special. I got a few wet for sure.
Nice. Everyone in Canada always wants to go to Banff for the skiing and otherwise. I have not been out there yet, but it's generally regarded as like one of the prettiest places you can go in Canada. At least it's like a larger town. Like I'm not talking about like going up into the Yukon or something like that, but I would love to go there sometime. Anything else? Anything on the horizon? I know we talked a little bit with Trent moving to Michigan, closer to VJ. He is Team VJ, as I assume everyone on this panel is, except for myself. Can you guys kind of explain the VJ Black Magic phenomenon? Why you guys are cheering for him so hard? As like he will be moving. Like if he wins, he's going to be way ahead of each of you on the profit chart. What's the thinking with this?
Well, I'll go first. I'm not gonna let the jealousy get in my way. As a Cardinals fan, I appreciate an organization that does things the right way. And
what a crock of shit.
VJ does things the right way, and as a result, he has the best fans in fantasy. And it's just really refreshing. It's a dog eat dog world, and it's easy to get ahead by doing the right thing. But here's a guy who just has unimpeachable morals, and through sheer willpower and brilliance has still gotten to the top. And, you love to see it.
Sam, what sort of things has VJ done? The sort of right things that Dan was talking about. What sort of things did he do to get to this point?
Well, the best choice that he made was not trading me Jackson Chourio 2 months ago at the deadline, even though I offered a significant sum of money. So that was probably a smart move on his part. But really, I mean, it's no offense to VJ. There's just shit other choices, and there's only 4. And we're talking about a trifecta of dog shit. Sean, Krabby, Habby, yikes city. So, I would root for ties, I guess, but that's impossible basically. So VJ it is. We're supporting our guy because there's a power dynamic that it needs to be broken up in this league.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I might say, well, I'll root for VJ because he's not someone who has irrational confidence in himself and calls it the year of VJ. I could say I'd root for VJ because, the other people in the league doesn't think he's like a snake and just wins and always seems to win and is like really good. So everyone stays away from him. And I might say that I would root for VJ because he doesn't abuse, like, I don't know, like commissioner power or take advantage of a new person in the league. I might say all those things, but really the real reason is that I root for winners, and VJ's a fucking winner. And so I'm ready for just to see me backing the right horse, because obviously that's what I do. And to see that go across the finish line is what the reason why I'm rooting for VJ.
Do you feel you were taken advantage of by the commissioner this year?
I didn't say that. I was talking about VJ. I was saying I'm not rooting for VJ because of that thing. I was talking about VJ. Whatever you are taking as an implication, that's a little bit on you there, Sean. Not
Tim, have you taken advantage of Trent this season?
No. The west side location of Upland Brewery and Dragonfly IPAs took advantage of Trent. I just happen to be a recipient of him being a little overserved and him being very intrigued by Austin Riley. Like, I can't help it.
I'm sorry. Do I have the second most cash going into the offseason and went 500? And yeah, probably. So I've never said I was taking advantage of anyone. You all are all just taking implications here. I'm not witting. I'm not scared of trading.
Adam has done a masterful job this week, not pitching pitchers against me that accrue negative points. And that's only because he leaves all of his pitchers on the bench. So we appreciate his service. Would love to get Adam back onto the pod sometime, as well as into the league after April 5th. Because his season definitely ended a few hours after the auction this year. Let's see. So, Trent, we talked a little bit about you being potentially taken advantage of. What else did you learn this season? Obviously, it's a big learning curve. You know, you're learning all the different owners. I'm sure it was just all very, very new. But what was kind of the biggest thing that you learned that you'll take away into the off season?
I still can't confidently align who's in the league and what team they are. The team names are they completely throw me, and then people switch them up, and then their little name underneath it, I have to look. Like I know, I forget who it was, but I made a trade this year, and I thought it was somebody, and I think I traded to Abby because they offered it. I thought it was the same person. It was confusing. So that's still going to be year 2 learning curve on some level. But I think the biggest thing I learned was to be patient on some level, right? I gave up on Lindor, and he's had a crazy second half. I gave up on Alvarez. He's had a crazy second half. And you are obviously advantage of that. But I actually don't regret anything that I've done, even the Austin Riley trade, because I still moved him at the deadline and got some of that money back. Obviously sold off some pieces and then got some core pieces that are pretty cheap going into next season. So for me in my first year, I kind of went for it, quote unquote, to try to see what I could do. And it didn't work. And I still got to sell off pieces, and it turned out all right. So that was probably the biggest thing, is patience. And I'm still realizing that my biggest weakness going forward is being married to mediocre pitchers, as Gower tried to get Mitchell Parker from me, and I would not give him up for some reason. And so that's probably the thing I got to learn. Just cut bait and run and figure out who's elite. But Hunter Brown, like, he's elite now, and Tim and I both let him walk. So that's a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely make a lot of mistakes in this league and get away with it. It's mostly just continuing to pound and pound away. So yeah, I thought you did a really good job, and I wanted to call that out. Like, I felt like in observation of some of the ads that you made, some of the trades that you made, you could really tell that you were picking up on on little things, on subtle things, on like how to win and how to run up points, I mean, you're going to end up with a pretty decent record, even though you started in a really horrendous position at the beginning of the year, especially when Bieber went down and then Luzardo went down, and you didn't have a lot of starting pitching behind them anyway. So I think you did a really good job kind of rebounding and setting yourself up for future success. So good job.
Thanks, Sean.
Tim?
What's the question?
Oh, sorry. You're the only one not on mute, so I thought you had something to say. We'll move
Tim,
on
what
to
did you
Dan
learn in
next.
your 13th season of the Points League?
No, I got nothing. Yeah, I've just been unmuted, which is fun.
Yeah.
I
What were the other interesting things that happened this?
Did rebound after a while and got his game underneath him.
Dan, I've been wanting to ask you this for a while. What has it been like having Tetro as your hobo? Because like I've been in fantasy leagues for like 25 years now, and I've never seen anyone successfully co-manage a team, truthfully. But I felt like you and Tetra did a really good job kind of balancing each other and making moves. And like, I know when he makes a move and I know when you make a move, but it seemed like it went really smoothly between the two of you.
It was great, man. I love having Tetro. I think that probably one of my biggest weaknesses as a fantasy baseball manager, and just maybe as a person in general, is lack of consistency. And I feel like having another person like definitely helps. I think kind of like what you indicated to Trent is like, it's better to make moves and make mistakes than to just not do anything. And that was definitely something that having Tetro helped with, because when I just like checked out for a week or whatever, I would get a text from him like, hey, I'm looking at this thing. And then like that kind of gives me a jumping off point where I start thinking about fantasy baseball, and then I get sucked into it and like, just spend a little time thinking about it, which I don't always do. We balanced really well just because there are also weeks where like he would be working crazy hours or something, and he would just text me at the beginning of the week and be like, hey, I'm not going to be making ads this week. Like, you need to take that. And as far as like decision making, I would say it's easy too, just because I can't think of a time when I've ever butted heads with Tetro. He's just like a super easy dude to get along with, and so there's never any like back office drama, that could trickle down to the locker room and upset the boys. Everything's great. And on a personal level, like the best thing about fantasy baseball, I think, is that it keeps me in touch with you guys. Like, I'm not as into baseball, I think, as some guys in the league, but I love the social aspect of it. And reconnecting with Tetro is just a real treat. He and I were close at IU when we were both there, and I didn't do the best job at keeping in touch with him afterwards, but he's just like a super solid friend and a great guy to know. So it's been great. I look forward to co-managing with him again next year, and hopefully moving up the profit chart.
Yeah. Do you think? What do you think the odds are that he would be able to make the New Orleans trip this upcoming auction?
I would have to talk to him about that. I'm actually curious who all would be thinking they're going to make that. Like, for example, the rest of you guys on the pod, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. I might get a chance to ask Tetro in person if the stars align. I'm going to go to a Savannah Bananas game in 2 weekends in Savannah, and then maybe go. I don't know. I'll be pretty close to Tetro down in that part of the world. So if I end up getting down there, he and I might try to link up and have an in-person fantasy baseball strategy session. And I would certainly encourage him to join us in New Orleans.
Yeah, that would be great. It would be great to see him. I didn't get to spend nearly as much time as you did at IU, but I enjoyed the year that I got to meet him. Super chill dude. I was thrilled to reconnect, even just with a little bit of banter that he's provided in the GroupMe thread. So it's good to have him in the league. So super excited about that. Let's see. We'll skip
Sean,
over.
Sean, can I make one comment here?
Yeah.
Yeah, classic classic comment here where, Gower says he's not really that into baseball like other guys in the league, which is a typical St. Louis Cardinals fan, where he's going to say, like, oh, I go, we have the best fans in the league, but, here we are. I'm not really that into baseball, but, I'm going to show up and tell everybody how much the crowds at Busch Stadium is all the time. So just typical St. Louis Cardinal fandom that I just wanted to call out, and his very heartfelt thing that he was saying, but I was just making sure the listeners could hear that.
Well, the Cardinals do have the best fans in baseball, Trent, and it's because we're not tied into the stats and all of the minutia that a lot of cold fantasy baseball statisticians, we don't care about the sabermetrics. This is a locker room driven club and a support driven club, and that's what really makes the heart of the MLB is right here in the center of the country in St. Louis, and that's why, just because the fans are approaching it. We just want everybody to have a good time, standing ovation for Skeens in his debut here. That's just, it's a people first organization, T-Dog.
Propaganda.
Well, my next question is for Tim, and I don't know if you've ever thought about it in this capacity, Tim, but it was pretty obvious that you punted the season and you wanted to do that from the very get-go. But you've basically made it so that you're paying $300 to at least finish third or finish second next season. Are you prepared for it to make that championship round again? You've done it one other time in the league's history. Do you have enough to get back there next season?
I think I do. It's going to be hard. This was interesting. This is the first time that I've really bottomed out. I've always kind of gone for it and finished fifth, and then, come into the draft with below average cash or whatever else and try and finagle my way to the top. But with the early injuries before the draft, it just didn't make a lot of sense for me. I really don't think a lot of my flyers hit, which is the problem. Maybe there's some things that change, and I'm glad that I've got McClanahan and some other guys to come off the IL for next year, but Wyatt Langford did not put it together really much this year. He's still relatively cheap. It would be hard to abandon ship on him a little bit, but Alec Bohm was nice. Jordan Westburg was pretty good. He's been hurt for a while now. We'll see what Junior Caminero does. He finally hit a home run the other day, last week. Alec Burleson was a nice grab, and we'll see. He's not rocking anybody's world really, but he's good enough. So there's gonna have to be some moves. I will be pestering people with cash offers. I will be making it rain on so many of you all this offseason, including VJ and Jackson Trio, but I don't think he's going to trade Jackson Trio. But I'm confident that I'll figure out a way to be competitive, but it's hard. Making the playoffs is hard. You really got to be on top of your game. You got to manage it well. And the real sucker of it all is that I have to pay for fucking Rob Crab's playoff run this year. And I think he'll suck next year, but I'm gonna have to pay for it again next year. So I've been placing a lot of significant NFL future bets to outweigh that cost. I've got $30 on a parlay of the Detroit Lions to have the best record in the NFL and the New England Patriots to have the worst record in the NFL to win me a cool 1,400. So I'm going to be pulling for that. And that's going to get me through to the Points League season 2025.
What is it going to take to pry Bobby Witt Jr. from your hands?
$350.
Okay. Well, you know the price now, Trent.
I floated it. I floated it to him right before the deadline. I was tired. It was in July. It was a weak moment. Bobby could not stop hitting. And I was watching him sit on the worst team in our fantasy league. Well, besides Witten, worst team of person that actually responds to text in our fantasy league, and it was painful. I almost threw $300 at him for that.
I do feel
Yeah, go
guilty.
ahead. You've had
I'm trying-
your hand raised for a moment.
Yeah, sorry, I have a question for Tim Byrne, and you kind of answered it already. I'm curious. We mentioned this unfortunate event of you losing money to Bob Crab a couple times, multiple unfortunate events, I guess. And I was curious what you're gonna do to get back into the black there. And it sounds like you're cooking up some good NFL bets, which doesn't surprise me. But I'm wondering if you're gonna take it straight to the source and if you're working on any fantasy baseball commission bets with Rob Crab going forward, or
Well,
maybe side bets of some sort.
that's an excellent question, Dan. While I will not be doing pickleback shots in New Orleans, there
Right,
is
well.
still a significant possibility of me being without sound judgment due to alcohol. So there's definitely a possibility that another bet gets made. I do at least feel bad. Last year in Phoenix, when I made the Justin Fields / Bears bet, that was egregious. Hand up, that was bad on me. I did not do the calculus there correctly. I think the Senga Bueller bet I was right on, except it got jinxed by mainly the two other people on this panel waiting for him to pitch, and then he's coming off the 6th inning. Excellent game. Already has half of the points of Bueller in the entire fucking season, and then like tears his calf muscle exiting the game. So that was a pretty brutal day for me. It's kind of
that was
one thing I've
hilarious.
been going through all year.
Yeah, that was a horrible beat. I mean, I agree with you. I think you got that bet absolutely right. And unfortunately, you made the bet against the kind of guy who will catch a low probability escape on the river and then still talk shit to you about it like he had you the whole time. But
Yeah.
I think
That's Rob Crab.
I hear you on the no picklebacks, maybe some hand grenades or whatever. Instead, it is New Orleans. And I think you just got to get back on the horse, drink big, bet big. Go get him, Tim. I believe in you.
Thank you.
Yes. So my next question, and this one might also pertain to Rob, but who managed the best this season? And like you can go a couple different ways with this question. You could say someone that did make the playoffs because you can manage better than everyone else as a non-playoff competing team, or if you want to go, with the more obvious with the playoff team. But I'm just kind of interested to get your take because I do feel like before you guys chime in, I do feel like Rob did a really good job streaming this season. I had a lot of reservations about the way that he structured his team going into the season by keeping Bueller, who, like, very clearly coming off of a second Tommy John, was not going to be the Walker Bueller of old. And that certainly has come to fruition. But all that being said, he has had a really, really solid season. And for the most part has checked most of the boxes. I do feel like he should probably have a player like Jose Ramirez on his roster right now. He did leave some cash over. So that would probably be my only other reservation. But I do feel like Rob had a really, really strong season from start to finish. But Tim, why don't you jump in?
Well, I hate to turn negative in a way. Yeah, I think Rob managed the team fine. I think he was probably going to be in a similar position, even if he was mid in terms of roster management. VJ, who is our Lord and Savior over the next 3 weeks, still managed to make the playoffs with only making 52 ads the entire season to date. Which, he's had a great team, so he, bless his heart, he probably hasn't needed to in certain weeks, but it's been a pretty well proven strategy in this league to be successful. And so I would argue that VJ probably missed out on opportunities, whether he could have then converted those into, cash of people to trade, or into other trade assets versus having to spend as much cash as they did to get to his roster where he is today. It is classic VJ to not make a ton of moves. So I'll answer the opposite way. And unfortunately, I really don't even want to do it, but Sean got himself into the fucking playoffs again, even though his team was ass leaving the draft. And he traded away Aaron Judge, and he got good stuff, but and Aaron Judge is having a phenomenal fucking season again. So
and Seth Lugo. He gave away Seth Lugo as well.
A lot of people don't realize that, and he was the throw-in in that deal, and I felt really stupid
breakout season
the first 2 months.
Season from Seth Lugo.
Yeah.
So, there's that. But yes, congratulations, Sean. You managed your way to additional fucking profit for this season that you had no fucking business being a part of, as it was on April 1st.
Feels good. I've been in the playoffs every year of this decade, and I hope that continues. But Trent, why don't we continue with you? Because I couldn't have done it without you. But go on.
Do I feel like you threw this question in for you to get your comeuppance? Yes, I did. Because I remember sitting at the bar because I wasn't obviously able to come to the fantasy draft, and you were still in town. So Tim and you went to the bar after brunch, and you were lamenting your team, just like this wasn't the year. It was just a rebuild year. And I thought, and maybe naively, that you would just sit idly by and let it roll. There's no doubt. I'll give Crab platitudes, I guess, but he's just seemed like he came into the season with the best roster, and he maintained that best roster throughout the season, so he didn't fuck it up. Which, congrats, have a gold star. But you were not in a good place, and you made those 2 trades early that put you, you were mad at me because I didn't take Aaron Judge in the draft with $60 some odd. You're like, I thought you were gonna go after him, and then you got Judge, and then Judge ended up being good, and then you still managed to move on from him. But you manipulate the roster. I don't regret our trade. Sometimes I've looked at it and been like, man, would I have been in a playoff position? But I don't think I would have, and I wouldn't have Durant on my team, who Gower tried to pry away from me every single freaking week leading up to the trade deadline. But it was essential that you flipped and even got Lindor back on your team after an off season of drama with Lindor, and I felt like a sucker because I took him. But anyways, yeah, Sean, I got to give you credit for doing that, and it was pretty impressive for me. Now, I am very interested to see what happens in the off season with you, with very little cash. And I'm really hoping everyone actually colludes. It just doesn't trade and see, let's watch the world burn as the commissioner doesn't have enough money going into the draft. But
year, someone wants to do that. It's just going to be rinse and repeat, baby. Anyway, thank you, actually, Trent. Dan, who do you have managing the best this season?
God, I hate this, but I was going to say you because of the same stuff. The Judge thing, I think, is huge. Also, you get extra points for me for getting rid of Lugo because now he's on my team. So that helps your manager rating with me. Yeah, I mean, it was good. I think I echo a lot of what the other 2 guys say there, so I don't have too much to add.
Fair enough. Does anyone want to have, and aside from Adam, because Adam doesn't count, but is there anyone that you want to call out for having a bad, managed their way out of the playoffs or managing their way to the bottom? Does anyone want to weigh in?
Yeah, I'm always down for an invitation to hate on other managers. I guess you did say not Adam, so I'll talk a little shit on the other guy who I felt like should have traded earlier and didn't, is Jack Battaglia. And it's hard because I love Jack. He's one of my very favorite people in the points league, but I felt like there were a few people this year who I was trying to buy from early. And so obviously I'm a little bit it's a little personal because I wanted to make the playoffs and I felt like I couldn't buy to go have a run when I needed a boost. But when I tried to buy early, there were people who were pretty much out of the running, who waited too long to sell. And then right at the deadline, I feel like they hurt their chances because they probably could have gotten more earlier in the season if they had dealt players when there were not as many other sellers. And then like right at the deadline, I felt like my hand was forced, so I had to sell. That floods the market with, at least a few really good players like Turner, Ramirez. And then, at that same time, Jack and Witten both decide to sell. So it created a little bit of a buyer's market, I thought. And they kind of cost themselves some money by not being decisive earlier. Again, some of that is personal bitching too, and I acknowledge that.
No, I'll echo that, Gower. Like those two in particular, because I thought it'd be hilarious if I had a lot of money and went and got one of those top pitchers and didn't even get a reply. And I was ready to offer like $200 for some of them because it'd been funny.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good call out, Dan. Actually, one of the reasons that I approached Trent earlier in the season was because I could kind of see where that was going to play out, and that Trent was probably going to be the only one that would sell early on because everyone was so close together. And like, even though Jack had a fantastic team, I thought, coming out of the auction, but just really struggled with injuries and then poor performance out of Corbin Carroll. But I also, like, because this was like kind of his year in some ways, it felt like I figured he would probably be pretty reluctant to sell. Um, and it's hard, right? It's hard when you go in with such an expectation and then like you get to Memorial Day, it's like, oh shit, should I sell? Like, we're just getting into June. Like it feels like the season just started. So I can kind of see why Jack did that, or may have felt that way to see if he could get back into it. But I do feel like that's a pretty fair criticism.
I got one that maybe is out of left field, and you all can disagree with me, but I think it's Tom. I think Tom's got one of the best rosters that didn't make the playoffs, and I don't think he made enough moves near the trade deadline to go for it. But I mean, he's technically, I don't know how your I guess it's based off points as your tiebreaker. But like he's one game back from you, Sean, 200 points behind. So he wasn't going to catch you this week, even if he beats me. But like, I felt like I was trying to talk to him about trades or whatever, and he was always kind of resistant to like go all in on it. I think he talked about that in the chat. And as somebody who's sitting out of the playoffs and 2 or 3 games back, wishing I was in the playoffs, I'm like, man, I felt like he was in a good position and just didn't go for it.
I think that's kind of fair too. I think Tom's a really smart guy, and I sometimes wonder if it's because he's got like a finance guy and he doesn't want to invest in like depreciating assets or whatever. But like, I feel like he's always super reluctant to buy Sunday streamers and stuff like that, or like to do things. Which like I totally get the aversion to that, but now like it's kind of table stakes in the league. I feel like everyone buys Sunday streamers, and like I get Tom's point of view where he's like, I don't want to like light $10, $15 on fire to get a few extra points this weekend. But if that helps you get 1 or 2 more wins, like that could change his whole season, Like
you play to win the game, Gower. You play to win the game.
Yeah. And like I totally get like where he's coming from, where he's like, I have a good team, I should just be able to win with what I have, and like I'll keep my powder dry until I'm buying at the deadline or whatever. But I mean, everybody buys streamers now. It's just like I think that there are a few parts of the league that are like they've gotten like where things that seem very unreasonable have been adopted by enough people that you just kind of have to participate in it. And I think like buying Sunday streamers, like paying, 5 times as much for a top 10 guy as you do for a top 20 guy, or like top, whatever that break off is. Like there are just some things in the league that are very hard to stomach, but I don't, it seems like the teams that win always do those things, and you just kind of have
to. I've been wanting to ask about Sunday streamers for a while because I also find it super annoying, like having to like haggle with people on Sunday mornings, which is it also is part of the fun, I suppose. But like I do feel like teams like particularly like an Adam are really like are the ones who really struggle with it. Like and there's some like, just for whatever reason, Sunday like morning is like a really busy day, like especially if you're like going to church with your family or you like have kids or you've got like some sporting event, for your children. And I just kind of wonder, I've been wanting to get some feedback on that. Not that I think we can really do a whole heck of a lot about it, but like are there any like parameters to make it easier to kind of to get that done? Cuz like we'll see trades, they'll go right up until like the 1 p.m. games Eastern. And then, of course, we'll see like sometimes we'll see trades like going into Sunday night. And I just can't really gauge whether or not people really enjoy that part of the league or if they hate it. And I guess some of it probably just depends on whether or not if you won or lost. But what are your guys' thoughts on that?
I love it personally. I love the Sunday streamer trade. I think the only thing that I would say, like, the only caveat in that, Sean, is that I would want to be sensitive to like whether or not it's putting a burden on you. Because I know you said you sat around a lot this summer, but like, at some point you might decide to go do things. And I feel like it probably is a big burden on the commissioner's office to have like a bunch of dudes being like, hey, like, Joe Schmo is he just got called up and he starts in 5 minutes and I'm trying to sell him for $2. Can you push that for me?
It was kind of an unusual summer because usually I do spend at least a week in Europe, and instead I'm doing that at the end of this month, and which is great. But I am pretty online. I'm probably like one of the most attached people you'll meet to their phone. So it works out fine. The only time it's a struggle for me is if I'm driving back from a place and I'm like I'm like driving on the highway and then like trying to get stuff done at like 11:45 or 12:48 is problematic. But for the most part, it's not too bad. But it can put me in some weird spots. Like if I go to the gym and I don't take my phone with me to the gym, and like something gets done. So like as long as people understand, like I might not be able to get it done. If you're like really running against the wire. So like I definitely recommend trying to get those deals done more like Saturday night because I'm definitely gonna approve them right when I wake up in the morning on Sunday.
I too miss trades because I'm at the gym, and that's unfortunate. So I do want to say, you all are talking about this. I don't think this ever. Maybe one time I made a trade or got offered a trade. I never asked. I guess no one asked me. And I think that's a testament to how bad my pitching staff was because no one wanted any of my Sunday starts.
I could see a world, Sean, where like we have a soft, more or less rule that like the trade has to be executed and sent to you before noon. So you don't have to like deal with it, but you check it at some point between noon and 1. So then you just process them all versus like going back and forth. There's a bunch. I think it's going to be hard to get rid of ultimately. But I think, and Tom is a part of this. The pendulum is probably going to start to swing a little bit back towards like, I don't know, these are pretty shaky Sunday guys. Is this really worth $3, $4, $5? If it's $1, that might be one thing. But I think as we started to see it happen more and more over the years, then the sellers started to be like, oh, fuck you. I don't $5 for Cole suck my dick. So like, who cares? Because it's a Sunday streamer to you. So whether you trade him or not, the only missed opportunity is maybe $5. All right, you might sell him next week as a weekend start for $4. So like you could convert that guy who's a streamer into a sold streaming piece many times. So it's an interesting like leverage scenario where like I think the price has gotten high on a lot of them, and I was doing a lot of that early on, admittedly, but I was in the seller camp, and there was 10 other teams potentially buying. So I don't know that it'll change a ton, but I could be certainly open to like a sort of a soft deadline of like noon Eastern that like at least gives the commissioner's office more time to process them or something.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. It hasn't been too bad, and I do feel like there were fewer trades accepted like that this season, which is good. But yeah, it can create just a weird situation, especially if like the person making the trade is going against me, because then it's like, am I fucking them over? Like that's the part that really gives me
Yeah.
pause. Is because like I don't want to get into that situation, but like I also have a life. Like I'm not always going to be attached to my phone, but pretty close. Um, Lastly, so we're into the playoffs. Myself, Habby, VJ, Crab. I think all of you would prefer for Rob to finish last and VJ to finish first. If that's wrong, let me know. Who would you rather have higher up between myself and Habby? Because I feel like those are the only two that are probably getting flipped.
I would rather have Habby finish above you, Sean. The only person my ranking is VJ, Habby, Sean, Krabby. We cannot let Rob Crab win a second title. I think a unanimous. Everybody agrees. And I think there's a pretty large gap then between you and Habby. Sure, I don't want Habby to win. He's won before. Like I don't need any more of that. But at least like it'll be a quiet off season. He's not gonna drag his nuts everywhere. So it's a pretty sizable tiered gap, 1 through 4 for me.
Back to back for Andrew.
I'm just kind of wondering if VJ needs to throw this week's game and let you, Sean, take the third slot so he can have an easier first round game against Crab. Because I think that for VJ or for Crab Seed, why I don't have a lot of faith in it is because he's got a lot of guys that have very large leads in their division. And we might start seeing some off days for some star players, since his roster's got some pretty good players on there. So I think that's a huge thing. So I easily would want, Sean, you to be my second choice outside of Team VJ, because since I will take partial credit in my mind for your win, since you do have half my roster. So that's where I think I'm at. But I don't have the hate for Habby like there is in this league. Like he's actually been really nice, and we've done some trades and talked and stuff. He's been very welcoming, and maybe that's his game. But it still is not someone that I'm like loathing or not wanting to win, where, no more Year of the Crab. I'm out of that.
I have Sean above Habby in my personal rankings. I kind of get a kick out of Sean's smugness, and I kind of like it when he drags his nuts everywhere in the off season. I feel like Sean's smugness is very overt, which I appreciate. It's like a very direct smugness, where I feel like the Habby brand of smugness is like, it's like subdued in a way. It feels yeah, it's like it feels like he's like trying to be smug and take the high road at the same time or something. And at least Sean's just like, here's my dick. And there's something honest about that I appreciate.
So I didn't realize there was so much hate for Habby until Gower's video. Like I did not pick up on that from the league. And then when Gower's going through, I thought for sure, because Gower and Crab's dad are going to fight each other. So I knew there was like animosity there. So like when he threw out his I forget what it was. I was like, oh shit, like people like don't like this guy. He's been really nice to me during the sex, not like in a personal way, but like as a fantasy manager. But so I was very shocked by that revelation.
Yeah,
mid-season.
I should probably explain that a little bit. That was there. Habby and I have some points league trade history that has been unfavorable to me. But the most recent thing that made me say that is because I don't remember what was going on. There was some sort of negotiation where I feel like Habby is like he's like a stereotypical businessman where like I don't know if you've ever heard that one of like, oh, like you're like marrying your kid off to Bill Gates' daughter. And you go to Bill Gates and you're like, hey, your daughter should marry my son. And they're like, Bill Gates is like, no. And you're like, well, my son's like the president of Chase Bank. And Bill Gates is like, okay, maybe. And then you go to Chase Bank and you're like, hey, you should make my son your president. And they're like, absolutely fucking not. And it's like, oh, well, he's married to Bill Gates' daughter. You know, like I feel like he's like working a lot of angles at the same time. And I felt like he was trying to squeeze me on something. And so I said, absolutely fucking not. And I drew a line in the sand. Shane Bakanon is not to be trifled with. But then in a moment of absolute weakness, after I made that video, I did propose a trade to Habby during the trade deadline frenzy. I tried to do it.
Man of honor. Man of honor right there. Sticks to his
God,
guns.
a proud moment.
I definitely didn't expect this. I really thought that everyone would pretty much be unanimous in preferring Andrew, because Andrew has not historically gotten a lot of hate in this league at all. He's, I would say, of those who have been in the tier 1, the preferred champion of that group most years anyway. So it's good to hear that he's getting some hate finally. Fuck you, HR Pickens. But no, Andrew's good guy. I'm looking forward to celebrating his 40th here in a few weeks in Munich. But yeah, in terms of baseball, fuck that guy. And then okay, so we need to have like kind of an extended conversation about Rob and the implication of him winning. And I think Tim, you kind of hit on it earlier, but I really can't think of anyone that hates Rob more than Dan. So I don't know which of the two of you should go first, because like Tim, you owe him money, but like historically, like Gower's had some pretty cutting things to say about Rob. Whichever one of you wants to swing away. What does this world look like if he wins the title?
And if he's watching stream, Tim, while you talk, I'm going to just do this real quick to remind him it's not quite Year of the Crab because the Super Bowl here. So go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, nobody cares about the Kansas City Chiefs. This is not.
The Crab does.
Well, yeah, because Krabby's a fucking front runner, so he's probably already switched from the Niners to the Chiefs as his favorite team. We'll probably get that announcement at some point this offseason. Yeah, listen, I mean, I don't mind Rob as much some of the time, but if he has ground to stand on as a 2-time champion, we're not going to hear the fucking end of it. We're going to be like, it's going to be like inhaling methane gas everywhere we go in that GroupMe thread. All of us will just be working our normal jobs, doing our normal shit, hitting the gym like we all will do, very healthy, on the bench press. And then we're just going to get a GroupMe notification that's Rob Crab out of nowhere, like, ha, Shohei Ohtani had a ham sandwich today. Guys, guess he's going to be MVP again. And that's going to be fucking December 10th. That's the picture that we're going to live under. So we all need to put our collective juices, euphoria, and everything behind VJ, because that's the best world that we want to live in. That's my Rob Crab. We can't be in this world. I don't want to be a part of that world.
It's pretty bad. Go ahead, Dan.
Here. Yeah, no, you nailed it, Tim. I think yeah, it can't be the Year of the Crab. Yeah. I think like the Yankees, it's just everything about the I don't know. The guy like chases victory by changing his allegiance to every sports team, and that's all unearned. he's never sweating it out when his team sucks. He's just hopping on the next bandwagon. But the points league, you can't fake it, and I don't want to see him make it, because then it truly might become too insufferable.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and actually, I was gonna circle back to something that Trent mentioned about VJ dropping. It actually did cross my mind last week that Andrew was tanking against you, Dan, to drop into that 4 spot. I don't know if that was actually the case. It's not really like Andrew to not set a lineup with his pitchers. Like, he's pretty much always on the ball, if you will. And playing Rob, particularly the way that Rob sets up next week, is pretty enticing. Most of his top pitchers are going to go on Sunday, and then he'll be pretty backloaded. But if you have a 2-start week next week, you feel pretty good against Rob, just given kind of how he matches up. So I did kind of want to circle back to that. But yeah, if Rob wins the league, it's gonna be a long winter, to say the least.
On the happier side of things, though, imagine what a great winter it will be if VJ wins. When VJ wins, and furthermore, just imagine how drunk he's going to make Tim Burton get in New Orleans if VJ is the reigning champion.
So many bullfrogs. Yeah.
Rob did post in the chat.
Oh, did he?
I will answer his dumbass question for him.
Wait, can you read it out? I can't. I'm not looking at it.
Yeah, he posted something. It was basically, who will have more this year? White Sox wins. They have 31 right now, or Caleb Williams touchdowns, and touchdown throws, to be specific. And that's just dumb, because this is how Rob shows his face as being a dumbass, because it takes 2 seconds to Google NFL passing touchdowns in 2023, and there's only been 3 guys that had 30 or more last year. Dak had 36, and then Jared Goff and CJ Stroud had 31 and 32. So the White Sox have 31 wins right now. I mean, they're not going to win a ton, but they might win 2 or 3 more games. No, Caleb Williams is not going to have the best passing touchdown season in the NFL this year. I fucking love him. It's great. Trent's on board too. He drafted him in a fantasy league with me. So we are blood brothers now for Caleb Williams. But Rob, just don't post dumb questions that you can answer yourself and realize aren't going to be true. This is just, we can't have this. We can't have any more of Rob shit posting. We need VJ to win.
Yes. Wow. Obviously, if Rob wins the league, we will be recording a podcast with him right after. So as you can imagine, I'm not looking forward to potentially hosting that. So I'm very hopeful I win next week. If nothing else, just to escape having to do that pod with him.
I think you should
VJ
get Tetro
wins.
as a co-host, and he does it for you.
Given that they've never met each other, that'd be mildly hilarious. But yeah, I enjoy, just as an aside, I do enjoy hanging out with Rob. He's a lot of fun to hang out with. Always good for banter, particularly in real life. But he is, insufferable on GroupMe. I cannot stand him on GroupMe. Anyway, anything else? I don't want to keep you guys on here for too long. Any football comments? Dan, I know you're going to be at the Bills game this weekend. Trent, I don't know what you're doing tomorrow for the Chiefs game. I have a pretty good idea what Tim's doing for the Bears game.
Three-peat. It's going to be a good year. It's going to be a good year. Bears.
I only cheered for the Chiefs last year because they were playing the 49ers, and that's Rob's.
Oh, I know. I will get hate. It's fine. You understand that you win this many times. We've become the new Patriots. It's all right.
I wouldn't go that far.
I've won this league a lot.
I think that Chiefs fans want to think that people hate the Chiefs because they're good, but it's really just because Chiefs fans are to real life what Rob Crab is to the fantasy baseball group me. Just such honestly, I don't even know if that's true. I have no beef with Kansas City Chiefs fans from Kansas City or the surrounding areas. So T-Dog, I respect your fandom and I'm happy for you, but being in St. Louis and seeing all of the Chiefs fans around here that were Rams fans a few years ago it's just an awful lot, you know?
We are the Missouri team, or NFL's Missouri team, something like that. It's getting late, but you know, you can jump on the bandwagon. I mean, you're in the same state. Your tax dollars are going to go to their new stadium. They're going to get so.
I will be watching the Bears this weekend. I may go to Fat Dan's, which I think is what Sean thinks where I'll be. We'll see. I also want to watch 18
I presume you would watch from home.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm going to get ahead of this now. I'm projecting the Bears to go 10-7, and they may get off to a 1-3 start. Early tough schedule, and they may even fucking lose to the Titans. They are 4.5-point favorites. That is way too much. They should be maybe 1 or 1.5-point favorites. I don't want to hear it from anybody in this fucking chat if the Bears lose and Caleb Williams looks bad.
Middle of the season, win the Pac-10
Tim is doing a masterclass. I told him this today on text. A masterclass of emotional hedging. Like he is like building a cocoon around himself that like if the Bears are bad, then I won money and I called it. But if they do good, then he'll be like, the Bears are back, baby. This is the greatest team ever. And I'll get audio text from him. So that's what he's now built for himself here. Don't let him build this facade in front of everybody.
Trent, what do you think the odds are that Justin Fields takes the reins for Russell Wilson?
Oh, Justin Fields is going to play for the Steelers because Russell Wilson is trash, and that's not going to last long in Pittsburgh. But I do not think that Chicago Bears fans are going to look at what Justin Fields is doing and go, oh, man, like we missed out on that. Like I think he's going to just be mid. I think Justin Fields is the next Geno Smith. Like I think he's going to have a couple of good years here in the future.
All right, it's an interesting comp. It's a good comp.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, the Bengals are going to win the Super Bowl, so there's that. And looking forward to seeing Jamar Chase get back out there after a lengthy summer holdout.
I think you need to say Joe Burrow stays healthy and doesn't, like roll his ankle and is out for 6 weeks for God knows what injury.
That would be very helpful as well. That would be great. But three-peat's coming to an end. 49ers aren't going to win. The Bears are going to suck. Bengals beat the Bills in the AFC Championship game. That's how the season's going to play out.
I like the bravado. I have a ton of respect for Tim's emotional hedging. I tend to do that also, but in this case, I have more Sean-like bravado. I'm going to say that Josh Allen puts the team on his back. The Bills go 10-7, and then have an absolute Cinderella run. Josh Allen is just like playing Madden on easy mode, juking everybody, hurdling guys, throwing absolute nukes to no-name receivers for touchdowns. And the Bills are going to bring a championship to the great city of Buffalo, New York.
Well, I thought it was actually kind of fitting that you started with that Josh Allen would have everyone on his back because he doesn't have anyone to throw to, and he's going to have to run to his receivers to actually move the ball down the field. So I thought that was an apt metaphor there that was pretty much going to be their game plan for the terrorist that is Sean McDermott. So.
Bravo, Trent. Bravo. Good one.
Yes. And on that note, we will bid everyone adieu and farewell. I am looking forward to doing this again in a couple weeks with whoever the champion is And if the champion just so happens to be me, I invite any of you to come co-host,
Just a
or I'll do the pod on
monologue.
my own.
Just talks for an hour just to himself. That would be.
It's been done
beautiful.
before.
I would
Here's
love
how I
it.
turned this team into a championship team with no money. 1 hour lecture.
He
Yes.
brings everyone on that he traded with to like just talk about that trade.
It's a whiteboard session. He pulls open some of his like bespoke spreadsheets, but he's anonymized a lot of data. And he's like, as you can see here, this is how I build my models.
I mean, they're in this folder, but you can't see any of them. Anyway, all right. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
You guys.
See you guys.
Cheers.